and then pretend there's photos flashing and they're very amusing and they're everywhere.
Oh
All
my
right.
gosh, the hero and partner are doing what together?
Can they show that?
Can are we gonna get deleted off YouTube for that?
Immediate apology episode.
Episode 1, Gates to Infinity Yapfest. Episode 2, We're Sorry. Episode 3, The Future of the Sentry Duty Podcast.
The future. Oh my goodness. Okay. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Cofagrigus' Glorious Gold. Their motto is Post Town's finest for the Mystery Dungeon's shiniest. Now let's start the show. Hello, rescuers, explorers, and every other guildling, and welcome to the first episode of the Sentry Duty podcast. I am your host and guildmaster Lex, and today we'll be yapping about Gates to Infinity. I am joined by a very special guest, which I will now let introduce himself.
Yep. Hello. I am CDV3 Turt. I go by a bunch of usernames because, as it turns out, CDV3 is obnoxiously hard to actually pronounce. Which, when I decided on that name many years ago, never thought it would be said aloud.
And here you are now.
Yep.
All right, so from what I hear, you're one of like the primary persons to yap about Gates with, so I'm very excited, especially because I've only played like an hour of it. So to start off, how would you pitch Gates to Infinity to a fan?
So, for a PMD fan, one of the biggest things with Gates to Infinity is you're gonna have to get past the gameplay. That's just unfortunately a fact of that game. But I think if you can look past that, there is truly a lot to look at and analyze with the characters and really just the world that Gates sets out to do. And honestly, I kind of go back and forth on whether it or Explorers has the more interesting story at points. One of the big things with Gates is that it's different in a lot of ways, but I do think it has its own strengths. The whole world that it's heads up it has its own benefits, and in some ways, I do think that it kind of does do a lot of things different from, like, say, Explorers, but it kind of does some things a little bit better. I don't wanna spend the whole time necessarily saying that Gates is better than Explorers because that's a debate that will go on for forever, but I do think it has its own advantages as a story.
I would love an episode to where I just have like the biggest Gates fan and the biggest Explorers fan just fight each other.
That would be a very interesting episode, and I could honestly do either side of that.
Now that we're past like pitching it to fans of the series, would you say that Gates is a good game to start on if you've never played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon before?
Yeah, it has its upsides to it. I think in general, Explorers, it's the starting point for so many people, and for good reason. It's either that or Rescue Team DX because it's the easiest and most accessible game to actually find since it's actually sold without having to scalp on a current console.
Imagine.
But imagine Gates or Explorers remake any day now.
I'm hoping.
Any day. Surely it'll be this year. This is gonna be the year. I have been saying this for 3 years now. But, jokes aside, I do think Gates is a pretty solid starting point for the series, especially if you're playing it without, like, a lot of the expectations that a lot of people have from playing Explorers specifically. I do think, however, there are things that do hold it back from being a truly amazing starting point for the series. Um, Unfortunately, the early game is a little bit rough. One of the first cutscenes in the entire game is what I would personally describe as maybe my least favorite cutscene in the entire series.
Oh my goodness.
It is the opening scene when you first get to the main town of the game, Post Town, and it is just the slowest paced introduction possible, where it really just every single time I have replayed Gates, I get to that scene and I'm like, "Wait, am I wrong about Gates? Is it actually kind of not great?" It is incredibly unsubtle with what it's trying to say. It just directly tells you everything that's going on while doing it really slowly, especially if you're doing it on the original hardware version where the text scrolling speed is awful.
Mm.
Like, it is a rough cutscene. That one cutscene does not represent Gates as a whole. Like, you've played the opening, and I'm sure I don't know how long ago it was, but I feel like you've probably gotten to that part at least.
Yes, 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 yes.
That cutscene is slow, for those who don't know, it's basically the welcome to the town, but then also it cuts over to show that there's some Pokemon arguing over literally nothing. And then it shows that argument, which, like, okay, that's fine. It establishes that that there's a bit of rougher parts of this town, or that there's disagreements in the world. It's a decent little bit of world building. And then Quagsire, your guide for the town, just blatantly tells you exactly what you just saw.
I honestly, aside from that though, in the beginning, I really do like some of Quagsire's dialogue because he's just kind of a, I don't want to say a dick, but he's kind of just,
No, he's a
he's really
dick.
blunt. He's a dick. Okay.
He's a dick in the beginning. Like, he is one of the most fun characters in the game. He is a dick.
From there, how would you say that the gameplay and mechanics differ from the other entries in the series? Like, would you say it's harder? Would you say there's much new stuff, or is it more of the same?
I would say Gates is a transitionary game between the Explorer's gameplay and Super's gameplay. And it's one that I promise we will get to the things I like about Gates. Unfortunately, the gameplay is the other big problem that I have with it, where it's not my least favorite game in the series to play, but it is probably the least polished. The balancing is all over the place. Your starter selection in this game is going to determine whether this is one of the easiest PMD games or one of the hardest.
Now I'm scared.
Um, I wouldn't say the hardest because Super is harder in every way. Like, even if you pick a broken combo in Super, that is a hard game where your item usage matters a ton. In Gates, if you pick a really good team like Axew Tepig or Axew Pikachu, it's one of the easiest PMD games. Axew is just the best main starter in the entire series, and it's one that I feel like most people, when they're presented the option of here's 5 Pokemon to pick from, one of them's a dragon. Most people are going to, on a first playthrough, pick that dragon, and it does make the game a lot easier.
Can confirm. I wasn't the dragon, but my partner's the dragon, so.
Yeah, I mean, the dragon is really strong. There's technically things that are probably intended to balance out Axew, like how a good chunk of the late game is focused around ice types. Yeah, that doesn't matter. As it turns out, Dual Chop is one of the best moves in the series that a starter gets. And Gates to Infinity is the game of the series that introduces the move leveling mechanic that you see in later games. Super does it, and I believe Rescue Team DX does it.
Okay.
Um, in those games, it's a little hard to notice it. In Gates, there are ways to boost your moves to absolutely obscene amounts. where you can like double or triple in some cases move strength. Because of a few other mechanics, you can do it really early. It turns dual chop into one of the best moves in the entire series, and also even as a multi-hit, it hits exactly twice with way better accuracy than most multi-hits. On the flip side of things, if you pick a harder playthrough like Snivy Oshawott, I think is the one that's generally accepted as one of the harder ones. It's either that or the opposite, Oshawott Snivy. The game has difficulty spikes. I mean, all PMD games do, but the early game is maybe the hardest early game in the series, complete with, bar none, the hardest first boss in the series. If you ever die to coughing or I think it's a Gabite in Super, like it's kind of on you at that point. But for Rescue Team, I'd say if you die to Skarmory, understandable. But in Gates, its opening boss, on my most recent playthrough, I've died to it. Unironically, one of the hardest fights in the game.
I didn't I won, so that's my ego for you. But
Nice.
um all right. Well, that is amazing. It's really interesting to hear one of the bigger Gates fans out there have so much criticism for Gates right off the bat, but I love that. I can't wait to get into what you like about it. Um
Yes, so
w-
I also am very excited, and like there are a few other gameplay things that I do think are worth pointing out for newer things that the game introduces. Mainly, the big one is you get to over the course of the game build up the Pokemon Paradise, which is your main home base. Post Town is kind of a home base, but Pokemon Paradise is your main hub, and it is the main thing that you're building up. You can build facilities that either let you buy more items, make berry farms so that you can have more oran berries. I think the game actually makes you build the oran berry farm at the start. It does add a lot to the game. There's also even things like individual type to type to shops, or dojos that basically buff up one of your moves per day by a pretty significant amount. And using that is one of the fastest ways to break gates to infinity, but at the same time, it's a cool mechanic. And it does take a significant amount of investment early game to actually do it. You kind of do need to know that it exists to use it. It's not just given to you for free. But also, it's not that hard to figure out.
all right. So now before we dive into the more spoilery type of things, we're going to take a break and show off some of my favorite fan art that I found this week. We're back and we're ready to dive in. So, once again, I will warn you that we're going to be diving into more of the story of Gates. So, if you wish to remain unspoiled, I'm going to have a timestamp up on the screen. Now would be the time to shield your ears, as we'll be talking more specifically about the events that take place. So, give it to me straight. What do we have to look forward to in terms of Gates' story?
So Gates' story, I would say just in general, this game has a really good through line of generally showing the Pokemon being able to um, do anything that they can to make a world that's not necessarily the greatest, just a little bit better every day. Whether it's in the blatant way of building Pokemon Paradise or just doing little things like being nicer to people or helping out where possible by, I don't know, like being some sort of Pokemon rescue team in the mystery dungeons. Like, even early on, one of the first major arcs of the game, I would say, and this is still pretty early on, is the arc that Girder goes through, where he starts off the game by just outright trying to scam and take advantage of the main duo's kindness or their want to build the home for Pokemon Paradise. Instead of just this being a, oh, you find out it's a scam and then beat up the bad guy, you kind of find out as you're going through this arc that Girder's like this because he himself has been through a lot of shit. You find out in a scene that has some of the best direction of any PMD scene for some reason. Like, there is a shot where Girder is like looking at his hand with the moon in the background that's like ridiculously well shot for no reason. There's no other moment like this in any PMD game, including this one. I don't know why it's there, but it goes unbelievably hard. I think you remember that, right?
I do. I know. I was like, whoa, this is like cinema right now.
Yeah, this is like a really good shot that's there for I don't know why, but I love it. You learn that, oh, he's like this because he used to be an honest construction Pokemon, but one day had just gotten himself hurt on the job, and it turns out that for I believe that same job, um what the Pokemon who did that just decided to do the most dickish thing possible of having him build the home only to tear it down directly in front of him while calling it shit, which
Yeah.
yeah, I think I also would hate people if someone did that.
Like, I remember hearing
But
about this. I'm like, oh my gosh, seriously? That's what we're going with?
yeah, but then like even during this arc, the main duo is like, "No, I still think that you can be that person that you were before you were screwed over and dealt the worst hand possible."
Yeah.
And he ends up bet Girder ends up over the next little bit, basically bettering himself and becoming the main construction worker for Pokemon Paradise, which is just a really fun arc to see really early on in the game. This would be the equivalent of like if the mission to go find Spoink in Explorers had like emotional depth to it.
I don't I honestly thought that that beginning arc was really solid and it did endear me to Gates a lot. Um so both from that and from the arc in your fic, which we'll talk about later, would you say that the running theme throughout Gates to Infinity is Pokemon that once had a hope for the world or generally just like um a chill occupation getting absolutely fucked over and turning evil mode? Would you say that's a running theme throughout Gates?
I would say it is a bit of a running theme throughout the game where a lot of the more villainous Pokemon in the story tend to be a bit more real. There's a lot less just mustache twirling, I'm evil for the sake of being evil in this game compared to other PMD games. Where, like, if you look at Explorers, I love Explorers. It has a lot of that for almost every character that is not Dusk Noir exactly. And even then, he is very much that in the base game. It is only special episode 5 that makes him as great of a character as he is, at least in terms of having actual real depth to him. And like I say this as someone who Dustnor is one of my absolute favorite PMD characters. He is one of my favorite characters because of his special episode. Like, his best moments as a character are some of my favorite character moments in PMD, but then also he does have some pretty bad moments as when he's in full villain mode.
What would you say in Gates to Affinity is your favorite arc of the whole thing?
Oh, it's Muna's arc without any shadow of a doubt. In general, it's one of my one of the most interesting things that happens in any of these games because it's something that starts quite literally from the moment that you hit start at the beginning of the game. In Gates, you have your usual, and now we are in like full out massive spoilers for the people who didn't hear that the first time. The game opens on the usual welcome to the world of Pokemon, except there's the little extra bit of, oh, hey, you're given a task right off the bat. You are shown in the first few seconds of starting the game that there is this Muna who is in danger from a Hydreigon. And then you're immediately literally dropped into the world after that. This is like one of the like I think I genuinely don't remember offhand if you see that before or after picking your main character. I just double checked the transcript. It is before you even find out what Pokemon you are playing as that you see a little bit of it.
I think that's genius, honestly.
Yeah. And later on, you're given after the big exploration, it's pretty much the equivalent of the arc in Explorers, the expedition, where you're out of town for a while to just go explore this place, the Great Glacier. Pretty much right after that, you end up going on a quest to save Muna, which, hey, that's the thing that you were told to do at the start of the game. And so you get there, you go through a pretty simple dungeon, and at the very end of it, it turns out this was all a massive setup for an ambush from Muna, who has been
Insanity.
literally from the moment that you hit start at the beginning of the game has been manipulating you the entire time. In general, Muna is one of the most effective villains in PMD when she is in full out villain mode, as we've kind of just started to call it, where her plans are genuinely smart. Like, usually in PMD games, the antagonists have really weird plans that kind of don't really work unless very specific things happen and just generally don't make a whole bunch of sense. Super has a really, really, really bad example of that where one of the main villain's plans literally only doesn't work because they just decide for no reason not to take a perfect murder opportunity. Quite literally could have opened on the main villain committing a perfect murder, and they just choose not to. And I don't think it's ever fully explained why they don't. But Muna's plan here, pretty much the only reason it doesn't work is because in the cutscene, the main character points out, "Oh, hey, we're in a cave right now. So attack the Chandelure that are the Chandelure minions that are the light source and get the hell out of here." I just really like that as as like a solution because it is genuinely a plan that is well thought out on both sides, and it's a moment where you're actually outsmarting a villain who they're a Muna. Muna is not intimidating even a little bit. As a Pokemon, Muna is maybe the least intimidating one ever made.
It's definitely low on the list. Bottom 10.
I feel like they had to make up for that by making her smart as hell,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
also giving her a bunch of minions that are a lot more physically strong, like the Salamence that is just part of her. her, quote unquote gang, as the
Oh
game
my
likes to
gosh.
call it. Yeah, there's just a Salamence in there. The Salamence is not really a character, but it's there for some really cool shots. But anyways, you manage to run away. I believe it is here where um during this escape where the partner actually is successfully captured here.
What?
Yes, this is not a bit, and you have to go through a full dungeon solo.
Oh my gosh.
It
No.
is one of the coolest moments in the entire series. And from there, you get to the end of it and effectively are rescued by the Hydreigon from earlier, which is just a moment of, wait, what? Isn't the Hydra wasn't the Hydreigon supposed to be the main villain? No. It turns out Hydreigon is the biggest goober to ever goober
Oh, I love that.
and is not in fact the evil monster that literally every other piece of Pokemon media paints it as. Side tangent, even in fucking Pokecology, the little official Pokemon ecology handbook, even it takes every chance it can to confirm, no, Hydreigon's just like that. It is consistently just the antagonist Pokemon. Meanwhile, Gates over here is like, but what if he wasn't? What if he's
That's
actually the best? What if he's actually, in terms of behavior, the closest thing to a Wigglytuff in this game, unless you want to count Quagsire?
it's just like I think and it's so brilliant because apart from the very, very beginning where you're already being manipulated by Muna, it's just like it's even being manipulative for like any meta knowledge that you have about Hydreigon. Just even if you don't know anything about that Pokemon, you see that Pokemon like, oh, that's the evil guy. That's got to be the evil guy. He's chasing the small pink thing. So it's just on so many levels. It's just flipping what you believe, and it's so cool.
Yeah, like it is out of the 3 times they've basically pulled the exact same twist, this is the one that it actually really works. Like, again, I love Dusknoir. He unfortunately is the victim of some really bad dialogue early on, where there is a line that it's become a bit of a meme, where it's, I believe, along the lines of, "Did Dusknoir just hide the faintest of smiles there?"
Oh my gosh.
And, like, what you didn't need to write that. The thing that he said right before that line was dropped was already a little bit suspicious, but you didn't need to say that. But yeah, the one in Gates is just really damn effective. But anyways, you go through the next little bit after a big info dump from Hydreigon, where the main point here is that Hydreigon is also the voice of life, which I don't think it's really fully explained exactly what that means, other than just Hydreigon's the reason why you've come to this world, and you're not the only example of a human turned Pokemon this time, but you're the last one that's left. Oh, we'll get to one of the most insane cuts describing one of the most insane cutscenes that's ever happened in PMD. If I saw it for the first time as an adult, I would have thought that it was fan made. You end up rescuing the partner after a another just really elaborate multi-layered setup trap from Muna that comes extremely close to working in story. Like, pretty much the only reason you get out of that is because the main character notices an impossibly small detail. Then just a little bit where where it's everyone just trying to finally get back home because it's been like, I think like over the equivalent of 70 floors in a row without going back to the main town.
Oh my goodness.
It is extremely long. It is several hours, this whole arc here. And then comes again just the most ridiculous cutscene in the series where Earlier on in the game, Kyurem has established itself as a massive threat. It is the Pokemon that shows up at the end of the Great Glacier mini arc and basically just sends everyone home. Here, however, we find out a good bit more about him, where he comes out, literally drops out of the sky in a borderline jump scare and murders Hydreigon on screen.
Oh,
Like, just fully on screen,
oh no.
and then proceeds to, almost kill the main character.
Oh, it's like that, huh?
Yeah. It is just a literal curb stomp
Oh my
that
god.
quite the only reason why you survive is because the partner is just begging Kyurem to stop, and Kyurem decides, "You are you are so pathetic that, yeah, may as well let you stick around for a little bit longer." I think the let me find the line real quick. The quote is exactly, "Ah, you have lost all will to fight. Thus you shall be unable to change the future. If you have no will to fight, then I have no need to crush you. You have had a narrow escape this night. Be grateful." Immediately after this, Kyurem finally reveals a lot of the big plot points, mainly that the world is under threat of destruction through the bitter cold. Just a strange being that's kind of not really all that well explained, other than just it's a world-ending threat that is born of the negative emotions of Pokemon and just general negativity of the world. Basically think dark matter from Super, and that's the end of that sentence. But Kiram explains that, and then also casually just reveals, yeah, there were other humans turned Pokemon in this world, except they all died.
Oh joy.
Every single one of them. Um, Earlier in the game, there's a point where you see a where Pokemon are talking about, oh hey, sometime every once in a while you see balls of light going up into the sky. Yeah, those are dead people.
What the fuck?
Again, this sounds like it is fan content. This is official. And the crazy train does not stop because after all of this, you get a full-length cutscene that is you finally getting back to town and the ensemble cast re- um pretty much just having a discussion of, is it even possible to change the world? And the solution is not an immediate the answer to that question is not an immediate yes. It's almost just like an exchange on, is Kiram right that the world is pretty much unsalvageable and this is the only way to fix things, to make the world start make everything start over from scratch? Obviously, the answer to that is ultimately no, but it does take a moment to get to that conclusion, and not everyone is convinced. There's a point where, during this bit, where the partner tries to give a big speech on why the world is in danger, but it can be saved. It's just going to take effort, where one of the town's Pokemon point out, if the world's going to end, then why not just have fun with it for the end, which is exactly the opposite of what the game is saying is the answer. But there's a lot of just generally crazy for PMD to include lines here.
It sounds like it. Kiram's just murking everybody. We got everyone giving up. Oh my goodness. I didn't know Gates had it like that.
No one has ever talked about this cutscene ever, and I don't blame them considering what happened immediately before this. But also, it is just crazy that there is pretty much a full discussion on whether or not it is possible to fix things. And then we get to the last major cutscene that I want to talk about, which is my pick for the most insane thing that PMD has ever done.
Oh my goodness.
I actually cannot believe this made it into the game, and I truly believe if the game got another draft, I don't think this cutscene would have played out the way that it did, because I don't know if they would have been necessarily allowed to go for this. Pulled this up enough times, I should have it borderline memorized, but at this point, it is the end game. We are fully going out to save the day and go back to the Glacier Palace, where the Bitter Cold is, to defeat Muna, defeat Kiram. It's the end game rush. It's the temporal tower, hidden land, that kind of part of. And then, before the Muna boss fight, Muna goes a bit more into why she's doing what she's doing, because ultimately what she is doing here is trying to her and her quote, as the game keeps referring to it, as her gang, which is in even in gameplay almost seen as like a the antithesis of your rescue team, where like in the boss fight, Muna even has team skills, which are the things that you have as a rescue team, which is just a fun in-game detail. But through here, Muna explains why she and her gang are doing what she's doing, where I'm just going to read this verbatim from the script.
Hell yeah.
This is actual Gates to Infinity dialogue. You, why could you possibly want to save this world? This cold, harsh, broken world. My friends here, all of them are Pokemon who are sick of this rotten world, this absurd world, this unfair world, a world in which only the honest suffer, a world where evil flourishes unchecked. A world like this, it deserves to be destroyed. This world has to be destroyed. Not a one of you will be allowed to get past this point, never. Then the boss fight happens. Um, you end up defeating Muna, and this continues where Muna said after the fight, you get the usual PMD dialogue of like, "Oh, we finally did it," which fair. That fight is the hardest in the entire game. And Muna said continues, "Wait, I won't let you lot go any further. Your fate, our fate, cannot be changed." The partner then asks, "Why would you go to such extremes?" Which she responds, "Because all my friends here, they were forsaken by the world, just as I was. We were toyed with, betrayed, and left with nothing but despair. But when I was wandering alone in the depths of despair, I met these Pokemon, and then I met Master Kiram, and I learned the truth about the world's fate. These Pokemon here accepted me, even when I had nothing. They reached out to me, they related to me. That was when I decided we could do it together. We could bring everything to an end together. Me, my friends, and this ill fated world, everything would disappear without a whimper." The partner then responds to that with this insane bit. "I understand why you lost faith in the world, Muna, but if you really care about your friends, how can you think it's a good thing for them all to disappear?" To which she responds with, "Ha, tell me how anyone can be happy in this miserable world. All that exists in this world is pain, and to escape that pain, you have to disappear. That is what I wanted for my friends, to take them away from that pain. But if we disappeared one at a time, those left behind would suffer even more. So if we all disappear together, then there won't be any pain left. Everything will be okay as long as we all disappear together." At which point, the cutscene effectively sto stops because it gets interrupted by, more plot happening that ultimately does lead to the scene where Muna realizes that the that this mindset is completely fucking insane, but also, holy shit, this is real dialogue in a Pokemon game.
Oh my goodness.
I think you can tell why I would say this is definitely one of the most interesting stories that has ever been told in Pokemon. And like to be 100% fair, the game does absolutely go out of its way to bring up these insane like genuinely nihilistic views on the world and refutes them and says like the game's ultimate message is no, it is worth trying even if it doesn't seem like anything like you're doing much, you are. And these little changes and little things to better the world do end up mattering. Holy shit. Like it actually does just properly show the other viewpoint.
It's a great message, and I think it really does get across that they go so hard with the execution. Um,
Yeah.
that is definitely I'm really looking forward to seeing that play out on my own time. That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, that is my personal pick for maybe the most well executed cutscene in the series, which is crazy because this cutscene also features Keldeo, who I think I personally have turned Keldeo into a bit of a punchline in my own time because he's just been mistreated in every single official form possible. Notably, like this isn't PMD, but his movie is one of the worst ones, and he's just an absolute he is just an absolute boy failure in it, where he gets his ass beat by Kyurem, after being told, "Don't fight Kyurem, don't fight him." He does it anyway, gets his ass beat, goes through the plot of the movie where he becomes the side character to Ash for most of it. And then at the end, he finally steps back into the role of main character and then gets his ass beat a second time, even after getting his resolute form.
Oh, what the hell?
There's a little more to it than that. I'm oversimplifying for the sake of not turning this into a discussion about that movie. He's a bit of a punchline there, and in Gates, oh man, they did him dirty. So, Keldeo's entire purpose in this story is he is Virizion, another one of the main cast. This game generally runs with a pretty large ensemble cast, which is another thing I really like about it. It's like if the guild in other PMD games were actually like major characters. But Virizion, part of her arc, which is another one of the best in the game for me, is that she starts off the story pretty standoffish, a bit of an asshole to begin with,
Hmm.
but over the course of the game does improve on that and becomes a pretty core part of the team who learns to care about others. And as it turns out, the reason why she's like this is she was with Keldeo. The game calls it best friends. They were in a relationship.
Okay.
It's treated as if it were a relationship. They just don't use the word. It's like how other PMD games really like to use the word disappear instead of die, including this one actually. They were best friends, as the game phrases it, until one day Keldeo just goes off to the Great Glacier on one of his expeditions on his own, and during it, things go wrong. Things go about as badly as they can, and Virizion ends up getting a letter from Keldeo that just says, "I I want nothing to do with you. Don't go looking for me. We're done."
God damn, not the text breakup. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, it is the equivalent of a text breakup, which, as it turns out, from Keldeo's perspective, yes, he actually did send that.
Oh.
He did it because he cared about Virizion and didn't want her to get hurt in trying to find him because, as it turns out, he was being chased by MUNNA'S gang. Also,
That makes
apparently, he
sense.
did this after learning that the bitter cold exists.
Oh,
So, if anything, he kind of just advanced its plans by a lot by turning his best friend into, just a bit of an emotional mess because really nasty breakup text is going to do that to most people,
I
Verizian included.
I would say so. Oh my
So
goodness.
if anything, he basically learned that he basically learned that the bitter cold feeds off of the negativity of the world, and then decides to keep Verizian safe by not having her go looking for him, which okay, I can kind of see that. But then does it by breaking up by breaking up and again, a letter that is just downright cruel.
Honestly, fair reaction, Keldeo. You got it, bud.
Yeah. He then immediately gets like almost immediately after this gets captured and basically that is where he is for 99% of the game. He gets exactly two cutscenes. One of which is the one where he explains that all of this happened, and the other is a single post-game cutscene where he and Verizian are talking again.
So he gets the
And
Princess
he's
Peach treatment. Lovely.
like he is pretty much just there, which is going to make it a part of this that we're going to talk about later all the more fun for me. In general, this whole sequence and like Gates' story, I don't want to be hyperbolic and say like it's the deepest, most dark thing ever, but by PMD standards, again, a lot of this is crazy.
You're not kidding. A lot of that is some of the most I mean, I especially because like, the game that I have the most experience with is, like, Rescue Team, like, that is a far leap in just where they go
Yeah,
with that.
Rescue Team is a really good game, and I do really like its story. It is also by far the simplest one in the series outside of exactly Gengar's arc, which is great, but it's not like it doesn't go as in depth as a lot of stuff in the later games do. I mean, even Explorers has some pretty crazy shit if you look really deep into it, where there is a point in the post game where it can very, very, very easily be interpreted as the main character having to talk the partner out of, um, jumping off of Sharpedo Bluff.
What the hell? What?
So the TLDR context on that is, there is a moment in the post-game story where the main antagonist of that effectively hijacks their both the main character and the partner's dreams to effectively tell them that their continued existence after the events of the main story is causing the world is causing distortions in the world. This isn't true at all, but it's what the main antagonist is pretty believably telling them. And the partner does have one cutscene where they genuinely do talk about whether or not they are right on that. And notably, the cutscene is on Sharpedo Bluff, which you do live there at this point in the story, but I feel like that location, specifically choosing to set it on the top of it and not in the part of it that you inhabit normally, that was probably done on purpose.
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think that's too much of a, for lack of a better term, too much of a leap.
God damn it.
That's fucked up. I don't know if I'm keeping that.
Oh no, you're keeping that. Like PMD in general does go into a lot of interesting territory with the later games in it. Gates, I think, is probably the peak of it doing this because nowhere else in PMD are you going to find a character basically just explaining, pretty much explaining to some extent nihilism and like talking about how the best way for the world to be changed is for it to be ended. Like, that is crazy shit for an E for everyone Pokemon game that has Pikachu on the cover. Casually revealing that, "Oh, yeah, a genocide happened at some point, and you're the last one."
Great, fun times all around.
But, like, even Gates's less high stakes, less extreme moments are generally fun. Again, the game uses an ensemble cast, and they're all just generally fun characters. And there are one of my favorite things that PMD does is it uses a lot of Pokemon that would be lesser known as major characters. PMD is probably the reason why most people are aware of Pokemon like Xatu, Wigglytuff, Sunflora, Bidoof. Like, none of these are particularly standout Pokemon, if not for PMD. Wigglytuff maybe, but even then, it would probably be overshadowed by its pre-evolution, just
Yeah.
because Jigglypuff is in the anime and has the famous bit of it singing and then drawing on people's faces. Whereas, if not for PMD, Wigglytuff doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah, not
Um,
really.
Gates keeps that general trend going by having the main characters of Dunsparce, Emolga, Virizion's part of the main cast, Girder's in there, Quagsire's in there. For how Gen 5 centric the game is, in general, the main cast is surprisingly diverse with its selections. But yeah, like, the main team is just generally really fun. Dunsparce gets a nice little arc of learning to become more brave and go on um actual adventures with the team. He goes from being the first Pokemon that you rescue to being a core part of the team who goes on the final adventure, or who goes on the big adventures by the end. Gates' ensemble cast just in general is one of my favorite parts of it. You have Emolga, who's just an absolute delight on screen from the moment where they suggest that you name the team Emolga's Enforcers, which tragically, Des despite my attempts every single playthrough to do that, the team length the team name length is just a little bit too short for it.
Ah,
But from the moment they do that to, the end of the game where they're doing stuff like taking the Prism, which is the big treasure that you get from the main, expedition to the Great Glacier, which is essentially a crystal that can record sound. It essentially works as a way to record sound and play it back. And the first thing Emolga does with that is just setting up a small little prank with it.
that's amazing. I love that from Olga.
Yeah. Like, he's just amazing. And also, Virizion, who I've gone into a bit. She's a great character who has a lot to do. Umbreon and Espeon are also here as later additions to the ensemble cast who aren't as fully developed as the others, but still have quite a bit of fun interplay to do. They're essentially the main ones who are responsible for being able to travel through the enter car enter cards, which is a whole weird system that is kind of what Gates to Infinity is named off of, but also isn't that relevant to the plot, surprisingly, outside of they tried to explain what mystery dungeons are, but ended up not really doing it at all. But they are pretty fun characters that also in a promo for Super, an official they got an officially made advertisement that was just focusing on them and where they go on the Jellicent Show, which is basically a gossip podcast where I'm not making this up. They make a weird ass joke in it where they vaguely implied with their phrasing that they may or may not have I don't know the exact wording that the trailer uses. They got together while quote nobody was looking at during the Great Glacier Trip.
Um,
This is real, and and I can send you the video of it. Not the video of it happening because I'm sure some fucking idiot has made that, and I don't want to know if that exists. You can cut this joke or choose not to.
there's an alternate universe out there where instead of Sentry Duty, this is the Jellison show.
Yeah, the most the most obscure thing possible. Where it's like, wait, the Jellicent show's real, and also it's toned down compared to the joke that they actually make during the real one.
Oh my goodness, what was that writing team on?
I have no idea. My best guess is that it was tr- very quickly translated and maybe very literally translated, and either the joke wasn't caught, like one guy knew what they were doing and then they weren't caught, or they just didn't care because the video has like no views. Weirdness aside, the cast is pretty great in general. I mean, there's even like side characters like Girder or Quagsire who we've gone over a bit, and they just add a lot of life to the game. Again, it feels like a more advanced version of what Explorers is going for with the guild, where they all have clear cut personalities, and you feel like you really get to know them over the course of Rescue. I wouldn't try to make a parallel with Rescue Team, but Rescue Team doesn't really have an ensemble cast.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
It has the main duo, Team ACT, just as a collective, not really as characters, but that trio, Gengar and Zatu.
Yeah.
Again, I this is not me dissing the game. It's just it has a much smaller scope than the later ones. And then the last thing I kind of want to go over for plot beats within Gates is my hot take is it kind of has the best executed ending in the series, where every PMD game has essentially the exact same ending. This isn't a surprise to if you've played if you've seen one ending cutscene, you've seen most of them except Supers, which is just it sure is.
Oh, can't wait for the Supers episode in season 2.
You would have to get someone who is not me for that because Super is the game that there is no bad PMD game except maybe Adventure Squad. I still haven't gotten around to it. Super is my least favorite one.
Oh, okay, I see.
I know that opinion is probably going to be my spiciest take of the episode outside of potentially me just flat out saying like Keldeo and Virizion are a couple for all like 6 Gates to Infinity shippers out there.
They're rejoicing. They're cheering right now. They're like standing ovation on the couch.
They're either standing ovationing on the couch or they are throwing every single blast seed in existence. And to those people, all I have to say is wait until Super where they're buffed. But yeah, the actual ending itself is the usual PMD ending where it is time for the main character to go back to the human world. Except this time, there's also the added detail that's mentioned where the others will it is just how things are where everyone will begin to forget who you are as an additional little gut punch.
Oh my goodness.
Um, and so this time you actually get to see the whole process. You actually follow the ball of light up as it goes into the sky, and you get to hear through a prism the final message that the partner and everyone in Post Town had recorded to just thank you for everything you've done, and then also point out that we're going to do everything we can to remember, and who cares what who cares what fate has decided. We're making our own path and are going to remember, which does end up working. Which that's another one of the main themes of the game that I haven't talked about as much, is just the general idea of bringing up the idea of fate and pre that everything's predetermined, nothing really matters, and then saying, "No, it does. It does matter, and you can shape things."
And that's a really good
And
theme
the
to
actual
have.
yeah. The actual ending itself really ties into that as well. And also it's just really fucking sad being able to see the actual process of slowly fading out instead of in the other games, the moment you get Ball of lighted, the cutscene's over. Here, you actually pretty much just get to watch the world leaving, and you are not immediately brought back. For the next couple of in-game days, you play as the partner who has to just handle the fact that you're not there anymore until there is eventually a mission where it ends with you being able to come back. Although notably, they do have the really interesting point of bringing up, like, you have another life on the other side of this. This is a thing that, like, even a lot of PMD writing I've noticed has a hard time balancing. Gates' solution to the question is just saying that the main character, after the events of the post game, can go between both. And then the story ends there, so there's no time to question that.
Interesting. That's the fact that they make you play as the partner just without you is fucking heartbreaking. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, it's really effective, and I personally would say it is the most emotional out of the endings, personally. Um, there's a lot of arguments that can be made over the unfortunately non-rescue team games, but I personally would say the one in Gates hits the hardest, and the one in Explorers has a lot of really interesting depth to it, and the one in Super is a really cool idea for a twist, but the Gates one, I think, is the one that best supports the overall themes.
What an ending for clearly one of the games of all time.
Yeah, like, again, I do have to point out, for Gates, you do have to get through the gameplay. It is unfortunately the least polished gameplay in the series, and you do have to get through a pretty rough, like, first hour. But the moment that you are sent off to actually go to Stony Cave and bring back the gems, and oh no, it's a scam, like that whole bit, from there, the game picks up so much. And even after that, there is the moment that you are going on that mission to finally do what you came to the world to do and rescue Muna, the game picks up so much from there.
Hell yeah, I look forward to continue to play more of it. I think I've gotten up to. I think we got Amoga and Dunsparce, and we went back to town, and we had met Verizian.
Yeah, Virizian's great, and that opening cutscene is very fun. It's very fun in a way that probably hasn't aged the best, but it's just stupid.
Yeah, just like totally like affection blocks poor Dunsparce. It's just like, no, I don't have friends anymore.
I don't make friends anymore because my last one broke up to me through a letter.
And honestly, knowing that, fair. Me too.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you.
yeah, that would be enough.
All right. So now that we've went through it, it is time to talk about the fic that you wrote that gave our favorite little villain Muna some more story here.
Yeah, so I know you read it going into this. What'd you think about it?
So I thought this fic rocked. It was it was really good. I liked I just like the idea of expanding on characters so much. That's something that I do in my own time. Uh I liked the format. I saw somebody commenting where they weren't not to bash any commenter, but I saw somebody comment that they didn't think that this format worked for your medium of choice, being fanfic. And I was gonna write a comment in response. I didn't because I'm like that's maybe a bit too much. But I will say it here. I disagree because it reads like a screenplay. If anyone ever has like seen like something on like stage, like an actual screenplay, that's what it reads like, and it carries everything so well. It lingers on the scenes just long enough to give you a picture. The character dialogue is snappy. Everything is easy to follow. So I just loved it from start to finish.
Yeah, so the idea that I had with this, this idea is several years old. It took until basically this year for me to actually sit down and write the idea and make it exist beyond an outline. But in the original idea for this was meant to be a special episode because Gates to Infinity doesn't really have those. Explorers of Sky does, and it's one of the best things about that game. And I've just always thought Gates really deserves something like that. And so I ended up writing this, Muna's Frozen Hope, which is intended to be an origin story for Muna because like there's just so much to explore with the idea of what the hell made this character the way that she is in the game because you don't go full out the world is awful and needs to die without going through some shit.
Yeah,
And in Gates to Infinity itself, there's I said the line earlier, I don't have it pulled up, but like there's one line that alludes to the fact that everyone had been that she had been thrown away. But there's not really anything beyond that that the actual game explains. Also notably, one of the main motifs of this game um has a bunch of variations in the soundtrack. It's called Desperation, and like there's a lot of arrangements of it throughout the game, like the light arrangement, heavy arrangement, super heavy arrangement. Like it's one of the main themes of the game.
mhm.
Notably, the standard version of it is unused in the game files.
Oh,
My own personal interpretation of that has always been there was going to be a sequence that had Muna explaining what happened that just never got put into the game for whatever reason. Real world headcanons aside and into game headcanons, this is kind of just what I've decided to land on. The idea of a Muna who is starts the story off hopeful, wanting to start a rescue team and make positive change for the world, getting used and thrown away, and ultimately thrown away, only to find Curum at her absolute low point and be dragged further into um, darkness and where she ends up being for the main story.
I will say it was very well done. I like anything that is a call to the games and expands on the games, but I didn't feel lost at all despite not having played that far in Gates to Infinity, which was really great. Um, I like especially, I don't know how intentional this was or not, but I do like the parallel we can draw between Muna manipulating you from the very beginning, and then in her own story, the your Zoroa's character illusion that was just completely so far past the span of what I thought it was going to be, just to know that every single thing was like manufactured to this point was insanity.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of the idea was to parallel like she by the end of the story has effectively become very much like Zora, except if anything, Zora by the end is the one who has a little bit more integrity than her. At least when it comes to how that actual final scene for him ends up playing out.
Yeah.
Not for the rest of the story, because what he does for the rest of the story is very fucked up.
Yeah, he just he continues to be a little snot. I do appreciate the fact that this is a Zorua who does not at all get redeemed, and then spoiler alert for Muna's Frozen Hope, I'll probably put a time somewhere, uh gets fucking exploded.
Again, like the original intention for this was that it would be an outright script, kind of like something I would use to make something like a ROM hack. But then eventually I realized, wait, I don't have the time or ability to do this. And oh, there's this cool PMDFF site that exists. What if I made some adjustments to this, added in a few more little bits of description to things, and then uploaded that there, and that way the story can still exist even if it's not quite the original intended form. And plus, this way I can still use the little dialogue portraits, which was was the reason why this took so long to actually upload when I did do it.
The portraits really added a lot of charm. I just like it because, after reading a lot of fanfics, I do kind of get a little bored of just like the regular old prose. So seeing something in like the script format just as is, and as you pull the portraits off, but it's also with as short as it is, it gets so much done. Like there's no part of it that just feels rushed. It feels like a very believable, this is what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I tried to structure it as well as I could to be as close as possible to being an actual special episode. In fact, the original Google document that I have, which has all of this, um, that very old version of it even included like mentioning like around how long each of the in-game dungeons that all of this would have been would be, or bringing up like little things that would have been more relevant for gameplay. And then for this, I obviously had to cut a lot of that and replace it with descriptions. Like again, the big one is um the end, just the entirety of like the last 3 chapters or scenes. Those were probably the ones that got the most reworks. Also, I did play a lot with the actual finale of the story a bit. I played around with a few different ideas. I I'm very happy with the one that I landed on, where it is Muna effectively going on her first job.
Right.
And also, this game introduces the idea that other human turned Pokemon existed. It mentioned that. There's no way I'm not going to take advantage of that when writing something that would have taken place in the past of
Oh,
Gates.
yeah, absolutely. Like when I was reading that part, I was like genuinely curious, like, is that actually a facet of Gates, or did you just make this up? And so finding out that this was actually in Gates has just made me like so much more intrigued into this entry of the series.
Yeah. And again, it was very fun to kind of lean into Muna is less physically strong than other PMD antagonists, but can more is a lot more focused on outsmarting the opponent. Like again, I love how the Lockjaw Lake scene ended up coming out, where the big thing is evolving the Eevee into a Flareon, then tossing them into a lake.
That was very insane. I was like, "Oh my goodness."
I was questioning whether or not I wanted to go with that amount of brutality, and then I rewatched the cutscene. Then I rewatched the Kirim cutscene in actual Gates to Infinity and was like, "No, I'm keeping this. If they're allowed to do that, I'm allowed to do this."
Hell yeah, absolutely. Knowing what type of time and Gapes is on right now, yeah, I would say so. That's definitely fair.
Yeah, I just generally the other thing is that I wanted this to be as close to Gates's writing style as possible, which even includes keeping in some of the PMD cheesiness to it because there's a few lines that I wrote down and was like, "Do I want to do this? This is a little corny. Nah, I'm keeping it."
Yeah, for sure. There wasn't ever a point where I was like reading it and I was like, "Oh, this is like too much one way or the other." No, I've definitely thought it kept with the PMD writing style, and now that I know that it was like perfectly thematically accurate to Gates, it just makes me have a whole new appreciation for it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed writing this. It's a bit different than what my style is going to be going forward, just because this was not written for PMDFF originally. It was written to be its own thing. Things that I'm going to be writing going forward are going to be written for PMDFF.
Man, I can't wait. If that's any indication of just how you're able to uh get your mindset in a certain place to write in a certain way, I'm really excited for what else you're gonna put out.
Yeah, thank you. I will say parts of this are there are definitely parts of this that were a lot. The big ones were just the 2 scenes after the Miracle Tower reveal, where it's just everything going as wrong as possible, where it's like, this is a lot, but also it makes sense for it to go this way for the story.
Right, yeah,
Also, Zora was just so fun to write.
I'm sure. I'm honestly so sure that you had just the time ever writing Sora.
Yeah, especially because like even if you like the he's kind of a twist villain in a sense, but then also what he's doing is pretty clear from even from the beginning. Like he doesn't drastically change after it turns out what he's doing.
Oh yeah,
Like
I would say like it's definitely clear that something's up. I just think the span of what he's doing is where it's not clear.
yeah, just the reveal that there was no Team Moonbeam, that never really existed. And then also just doing the bit of getting called out a little bit on it, only for everything to start crumbling after that. It was just really fun to write the really big scenes. Again, the Miracle Tower, which I definitely thought through that name a fair bit. I'm not gonna pretend like it went through like a million iterations looking for the perfect one, but I was like, no, I'm gonna call the tower where everything goes wrong at something like that.
That makes sense.
And oh yeah, also to finally get back at the thing I referenced way, way, way earlier. Um, this has an intro and outro framing device, which is basically just there because as a special episode, you kind of have to transition into this backstory. Unfortunately, that did mean that for me to write this, I did ultimately have to give Keldeo of all characters the final monologue. I'm definitely happy with how it came out, but also the fact that it's this character having to give the message of hope at the end of the special episode because you obviously cannot end it with, and then Muna killed everyone.
The end. Applause.
Also, I absolutely had to just have Muna call Keldeo's little stupid ass text breakup because, like, how do you think this is a good idea?
It is so nice to fucking to like like to remember what Muna was talking about and then to hear this bullshit that Keldeo pulled. It is just so satisfying after the fact.
Yeah, like there was no way I was going to just let Muna not bring that up as a point to rub in his face.
100%.
And like she is ultimately wrong in almost literally everything she says, but that is correct. What he did is stupid as hell. And also, I would imagine she would take great offense to Keldeo doing that to his friend.
Oh, 100% with her backstory, yeah. All right. So, I think that does it for Muna's Frozen Hope, unless there's anything else you want to touch on.
No, not unless there's any other questions you have on it.
I think I got mine answered. It was good to know, good to hear. And with that, I think we are finally, after two OBS crashes and 2 hours at the end of the road here. I think that about does it for this episode. Is there anything else that you would want to plug?
Nothing that I want to plug right now other than just keep an eye out. I'm currently working on writing a few different things, some one-off short stories for just practicing and getting used to my new format, and then also a much longer story that I'm still planning out and working out, getting that outline made for. But if it if it ends up going well, should end up being a nice little story about a Hakam Hakamama. I have no idea how to pronounce the Pokemon that I picked. Hakaomo? I genuinely am realizing that's an unpronounceable name. Um, the middle stage of the Gen 7 pseudo legendary dragon that has the clanging scales.
I'll probably flash it up on screen for you.
Yes. But that thing, it is a story about it escape leaving a bandit team after realizing that he can't handle that amount of just doing horrible things and learning to just be able to try and start a new life away from everything.
So I'll probably flash your PMDFF handle up on screen here. Make sure everybody can go check out Muna's Frozen Hope and keep an eye out for that. But if that is all, this has been Sentry Duty. I hope to see all of you next time. And remember, don't shirk your work, never run away unless you want to pay, and a simple smile goes for a country mile. Goodbye.